Hello, we are going to look at the twin Ogrons, their mechanics, how to defeat them. To start, you want to make sure you have two tanks and then a mixture of DPS and healers to compensate. For this fight, there are no mechanics that require a tank swap. So each tank will target one player, one boss, either Pole or Pheoms, and keep his attention the whole fight. Ideally, they will keep him in the center of the ring. Only for a couple times will they need to separate the bosses. Ideally, the bosses you want to keep close together because if it has a passive ability that when they separate, they gain haste, which will reduce their cast time and energy generation rate increases. When the fight starts, both the bosses will just have a debuff on them for 10 seconds called warming up. Ideally, they're just going to stand still and allows the team ready to get into place and cause a little damage to start. As for the DPS and healers, you're going to want to stay somewhat close together but still be spread out for certain mechanics. Since the bosses are going to be close together, if you have AoE abilities, you're okay to use them. The bosses do have a shared health pool, so if your DPS is stronger on a single target, do that instead. Through the fight, the bosses are going to gain energy. At certain increments, they will use their specific abilities. They have a 33, 66, and 100% energy as a marks before they use certain abilities. We're going to look at Paul's abilities first. So as a tank, you're going to be getting damage from his ability, mostly from a shield bash. It just causes some damage and also has an interrupt effect. So if you're spell casting of some kind, it will interrupt you. Second ability he has is a shield charge. This is the one time you need to focus on getting Paul away from Pheoms. At 33 energy, he will shield charge. So you need to pull him away from the group. This allows the rest of the raid to see where his charge is going to be targeted and allows them to get out of the way so they're not run over. Once his charge effect is over, bring him back towards Pheoms and DPS can return to doing their job. At 66 energy, Paul will use Interrupting Shout. When this shout casting finishes, it will cause raid-wide physical damage as well as interrupt any spells being casted and blocks them for 6 seconds. So if you're a spellcaster, when you see Interrupting Shout being cast, you need to stop your casting and wait for it to cause damage before you resume your damage or healing. When Paul reaches 100 energy, he will use a Pulverize ability. This will cause rocks to fall from the ceiling. There are 3 waves that follow this. So the first wave will just cause falling rocks kind of damage to all raid members. The second wave, you'll see rocks falling on random locations, dealing damage in an 8-yard radius, which you can avoid these. And the third will be very large rocks, which will cause crazy raid-wide damage to everybody. So you want to make sure you're spread out from these landing points and avoid any damage taken. Looking at Pheoms' abilities, he'll have an attack of Double Slash that will always hit the tank. This is a very high physical damage, so healers must be watching for this and be healing up our tank. At a 33 energy level, Pheoms will use his Whirlwind ability. Once you see this, the tank needs to be moving Pheoms away from the group, away from Pole as quickly as possible before it begins casting. So for 9 seconds, he's going to spin around, causing damage every half second, as well as putting a weakened defense debuff on the players hit by this. So only the tank preferably should be taking this debuff, and since he is focused on Pheoms only, the debuff will not affect him, as the debuff gives a 10% increase per stack of the shield bash, which the other tank is playing with Pole, so it should not affect him. So keeping him away from the other tank will minimize the debuff going on that tank that's focused with Pole. When Pheoms reaches 66 energy, he will use an enfeebling roar. Before this happens, as close as you can, everybody wants to stack up with Pheoms within 20 yards of him. This will help mitigate the damage that it causes between everybody. Enfeebling roar will put out a damage increasing debuff on all players within this range. So the more players in that range reduces the percentage of damage that they will take. As we don't want the tank being alone, it will focus to all 250% damage on that person, on that tank, and it lasts for 300 seconds. So this stack will probably be lasting throughout the fight, and every time he casts it again, there's a little stack onto it. Once the roar has ended, everybody can spread back out to their needed position and be ready for other abilities. Once Pheoms reaches 100 energy level, he will use his Quake ability. He will throw his weapons at 2 random locations on the ground and begin pounding on the ground, dealing raid-wide damage. After this, each of the weapons will begin to spawn fire waves that will randomly move out from their weapon position to the outside of the ring. You must avoid these rings as best as possible, these fire waves. You can run around them and jump over them. But you want to avoid them, as they will put a dot on you, blaze, that will last for 12 seconds. Thank you for watching my video. I hope these mechanics explanations help you with your succession of killing the twins of Ogron.